Most of us assume that people who are wildly overconfident must know, somewhere underneath, that they are bluffing, that they are performing certainty to cover for a fear they cannot admit. But that is not what the research finds. The uncomfortable truth is simpler and stranger. They genuinely do not know what they are missing. The skills required to recognize a mistake are almost identical to the skills required to avoid making it in the first place. There is a particular kind of conversation that almost everyone has had. Someone speaks with complete authority on a subject you happen to know well. They are wrong, not in some small detail, but at the very foundation, and yet their confidence is total. No hedging, no uncertainty, just the calm certainty of someone who has never been told they are mistaken. What surprises most people is their own reaction, because you do not feel that certainty about the things you know deeply. The more you have studied something, the more you can see its edges, its complications, the questions that do not yet have clean answers. And so there is this strange inversion. The person who knows least speaks with the most ease, and the person who knows most speaks with the most care. This is not a personality flaw. It is not arrogance in the classical sense. It is a structural problem in how the human mind evaluates itself. And once you understand the mechanism, you begin to see it everywhere, including, uncomfortably, in yourself. What we are going to look at is why this happens at the level of cognition, what the original research actually showed, and what the evidence suggests actually changes the pattern. Not tips, not hacks, the real mechanism and what you can do with it. In 1999, David Dunning and Justin Kruger at Cornell University ran a series of experiments that would quietly reshape how psychologists think about self-assessment. Their paper, published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, was titled with deceptive calm, unskilled and unaware of it. They tested participants in 3 domains: logical reasoning, grammar, and humor. In each case, they asked participants to rate their own performance before seeing their results. Then they compared self-estimated ability against actual scores. The finding in the lowest performing quartile was stark. Those participants scored, on average, around the 12th percentile in actual performance. But they estimated themselves at around the 62nd percentile. They believed they were above average. They were not performing false modesty in reverse. They genuinely believed their answers were good. The skills they lacked were precisely the skills needed to recognize that their answers were poor. Dunning described this as a double burden. Poor performers not only make errors, they lack the metacognitive ability to notice them. Competence and the ability to judge it are not built from separate materials. They are the same thing. The pattern also worked in reverse, and this part gets less attention. Participants in the top quartile consistently underestimated their performance. They assumed the tasks that felt easy to them would feel easy to everyone. This is sometimes called the expert blind spot, a failure to see that your own fluency is not universal. What surprises me most about this finding is that it is symmetrical. The effect does not just trap beginners in false confidence, it traps experts in false modesty. The calibration problem runs in both directions. What makes this so difficult to escape is that the bias does not feel like a bias. It feels like clarity. When you do not know enough to recognize what good reasoning looks like, your own reasoning feels fine. There is no internal alarm, no friction, just smooth, uninterrupted confidence. Daniel Kahneman, in Thinking Fast and Slow, published in 2011, described a related dynamic he called WYSIATI. What you see is all there is. The mind does not generate a warning when information is missing. It simply builds the most coherent story it can from whatever is available. If the available evidence is thin, the story is still told with conviction. In fact, Kahneman found that less information sometimes produces more confidence, not less, because there is nothing left to complicate the picture. This connects to something Dunning himself emphasized in later writing. The Dunning-Kruger effect is not really about low intelligence. It is about the limits of a closed information environment. Someone who has only ever been in rooms where their knowledge went unchallenged has no data to correct their self-model. The problem is not ability, it is exposure. And here is the part that took me longest to sit with. None of us has complete exposure. Every one of us has a domain, perhaps several, where our confidence runs ahead of our competence, and we feel no friction because we have never been in the room where our gaps would show. The bias is not something that happens to other, less self-aware people. It is something that happens in whichever corner of your life you have kept unchallenged. The research does suggest a way through, and it is more specific than the usual advice about staying humble. Dunning and Kruger found in follow-up conditions that when low-performing participants were given even brief training in the relevant domain, their self-assessments shifted quickly. Not because their confidence went up, but because their accuracy improved and they could now see the gap between where they were and where mastery actually lived. Knowledge does not just improve performance. It improves the ability to evaluate performance. These two things grow together. This points toward something practical. The question is not, am I confident? Confidence is a feeling, and feelings are unreliable calibrators of truth. The better question is, have I been seriously corrected recently? If the answer is no, that is worth pausing over. Not because you are necessarily wrong, but because the absence of correction is not the same as confirmation of correctness. Viktor Frankl, writing in Man's Search for Meaning in 1946, described something that keeps returning to me here. He framed the examined life not as a comfortable exercise, but as a willingness to hold tension between what you believe to be true and what reality is actually showing you. That tension is uncomfortable, but it is also the only mechanism that recalibrates the map. The people who navigate this best are not the people who doubt everything. They are the people who have found environments where honest feedback is normal, where being wrong is not a social catastrophe, but a data point. They have sought out the rooms where their gaps would show, and they stayed. If you find yourself thinking about which rooms you have been avoiding, this channel is built around exactly these kinds of questions, not to diagnose your mind, to build a better map of it.